Hey everyone, welcome to Papa's Workshop. Well, I'm having a great time in the shop being Santa's helper and making all kind of different Christmas gifts. And today I decided to make this pen for a very special person. Now this is made out of zebra wood and I love working with this material. And this pen I think turned out absolutely gorgeous. I want to show you in the next few minutes just how easy it is to be able to do the pen turning and make this kind of a Christmas gift. I want to give a close-up of what the pen looked like when it was completely finished. Now it's wonderful to be able to do a personalized gift such as this because it can be used all year around. And the first choice is to choose the wood. In this case, I'm using zebra wood. Now this is the brass tubing for this pen, and you'll notice that on this particular pen kit, the blanks are exactly the same length. So I'm going to go ahead and just put this down right here on the end. I do like to make it a little bit long, so I'll cut that right there, and that'll give me plenty of room. And then after cutting it, I'll make my second blank, and I'll have a little piece left over. Now this pen kit calls for an 8mm drill bit, and I have one right here. So this is the bit that I'll be using. With the blank in the chuck, drill bits in, everything is set. It's time to be able to drill this through. In the past, I've always used a drill press, but I always had difficulty with the different size bits and the different size blanks, and usually the drill press just didn't work out as well as I had hoped. Using the lathe in this manner, it gives a hole that's perfectly centered, and I don't even have to mark the center with the pencil, because when you put the blank into the chuck like this, it automatically will center it, and then I can just drill this right through very, very easily, and I have the perfect hole. Now this is the 8mm hole to be able to receive those brass tubes. And that's absolutely perfect in the dead center. And that's why I like using the lathe to be able to drill the holes. It's just so much easier than using the drill press. On these brass tubes, they've already been roughed up. But I always like to take a piece of 100 grit sandpaper and just rough it up a little bit more. I want to make sure that this tube sticks very, very well and is secured in the wooden pen blank. And this just gives a little bit more for the epoxy to be able to bite onto and hold. And to me, I still think this is an important step. And I don't think anybody should skip this. Now once that's done, we want to wipe them off really good. And it's time for the epoxy. Now this is the 5-minute epoxy that I'm using today. And I have found that that works extremely well. And I'll just pour out equal amounts and then mix it up. I'm going to take my awl, put that on there, and it just makes it easier to be able to put the epoxy onto this brass tubing and be able to insert it into the blank. Now this also keeps it from getting epoxy all over your hands, because this way you can just slide it in and your fingers do not have to touch the epoxy. And that makes for a better working condition. Now you can see how that glue just wants to come right off of there. And that's okay, because what I'm going to do is just push this all the way through, have it come out the other end, and then make sure there's plenty of glue on this end also. Even though we had a lot of glue on there, it gets rubbed off as it slides into the blank. Then I clean off the end of it. I'm going to make sure that both ends are clean. And I have it spaced just a little bit below the surface on each side. So that one's done. Now we'll repeat the process for this next one. And no, I'm not going to show this all the way through again. That would just be a waste of a lot of video. But if you wanted to see how it's done, just replay that first one and you'll know exactly how I did the second blank. So now it's just a matter of cleaning up the tools and we'll let this dry. Cleanup is super easy. We just take the paper towel, roll it up into the foil with our popsicle stick, and we can discard this. And like I said, there's no epoxy on my hands at all. After the blanks are completely dry, it's time to put them back on the lathe. And this time we got to trim the end of this barrel because they need to be perfectly square to that barrel itself. Otherwise the pen's just not going to go together well. And this is a specialized tool that's made to do just that. This will trim the ends so that they are perfectly square. And again, it's a whole lot easier to be able to do it on the lathe versus the drill press. So this is my preferred method. I put the blanks on the mandrel and set the lathe for the lowest speed. And now it's time to use this small gouge to be able to trim this down to size. Now I could use a bunch of different tools to be able to trim these blanks, but I find that it's just as easy to use this one little small pen gouge to be able to make all of the turning. So this is a matter of just taking the time and shaping these blanks to the exact shape that you want. With the turning complete now, it's time to start the sanding process. And I'm starting with 150 grit sandpaper, and I'm going to work progressively up through the different grits all the way up to 600 grit. It's also important to note, as you go through the different grits, there's an important step. Before you change to move to the next step, you want to stop the lathe and hand turn it and sand with the grain. And that gets those fine little ridges out of the wood. Clean it all off, and then you're ready to change to the next grit. Please remember to do this. This is a very important step to make sure that you get the finest finish possible in this sanding process. Once you finish the last grit, which is 600 grit, again you're going to hand sand those fine little grooves out of this wood by going with the grain. From there it's time to, what I do is take some alcohol and just wipe a little bit onto a paper towel and clean off all of that fine sawdust that may still be on the pen blanks. This also gives you a first glimpse of what it's going to look like when you put that finish on. This zebra wood is just absolutely beautiful, and you can see all that residue that came off that was on that paper towel. One final step that I like to do with the pen blanks is take some sawdust in my hand and rub that over these blanks. It really does burnish this wood, and it really makes it shine. So this, I believe, also is a step that you really don't want to forget. And it only takes just a minute or two to be able to do, and I think it makes a world of difference. At the laser, it's time to personalize this and put the person's name on it. I have a little temporary jig that I can drop the blank into, and this works just fine. The laser itself, to be able to engrave this name, literally just takes a few seconds to be able to do it. And I think it really makes for a nice personalized touch to be able to add the name. That looks fantastic. It's time to put this back on the lathe now and put the final finish on. And for that, I'm using the Starbond thin glue to be able to put roughly 15, maybe 20 coats on. To apply this, yes, I do use the rubber gloves and a paper towel. Put a few drops of the CA glue right onto that paper towel and rub it lightly across the pen blank, and it will add numerous layers, and it dries almost instantly. This is an extremely durable finish that literally will last years and years. With all of the coats of the Starbond CA glue on now, which is roughly about 20 coats, it's time to do the final sanding. And here I'm starting at about 800 grit, and I'm going to progressively work all the way up to a 13,000 grit. Now this is wet sanding with these little foam pads, and it is amazing the finish that you get with this. Final step that I do is I put a special polish and a protective coating onto this, and again it just rubs on, it's friction dry, and then from there it's time to assemble the pen. And here's the completed pen. I think it absolutely looks fantastic. I think and hope this will be a treasured gift for many years to come by this special person. I want to thank everybody for watching the video today. It was a lot of fun to be able to show you how to make this pen. please, there's still time to get out there in that shop and start making all of those different Christmas gifts. It's a lot of fun to be able to make personalized gifts. So if you like this video, by all means, give me a thumbs up, and don't forget, while you're there, hit that little subscribe button and the bell notification next to it, because it really does help out. And I look forward to seeing each and every one of you in the next video. So for now, bye-bye. Can't wait to see you real soon.